Hey everybody, how's it going? Dan Shinder here on Drum Talk TV, coming to you live from Globe, Arizona. I know, where's that? I live here and I don't even know. Now, actually, we're about 100 miles east of Phoenix, up in the mountains, out of the city, away from the commotion. We create our own commotion and talk about commotion in motion. Here's first time guest, Ray LeVier, joining us all the way from New York, across the country. Ray, welcome. So excited to have you.
Oh my God, Dan, thank you for having me. I am so stoked to be on your show. It's an honor and a privilege, my friend.
Likewise, I've
Have
been
me.
following you for so long, and two
Oh
things
man,
come to mind when I watch you play. And I've been saying this to people for a while. Now I get
you
to
should
say
get
it to
more
you.
lessons.
Yeah, I need more lessons. Two things. One, Ray is just such a good and smooth, fluid player. Number
Oh
two,
man.
I need to practice. I'm embarrassed to say I've been playing drums for 54 years. Like I've got a very narrow lane, but it's really deep. And there's
Mm,
just some things I never worked on. I'd like to start with that. And folks, hang in there. I'm going to show a bunch of clips of Ray's playing. The first thing I want to ask you is I know you went to university, you studied jazz. What drew you to jazz? And where did you start to expand your technique, styles, and genres of music, whether it was to listen to and or to
yeah.
play to? Where did it start and how did you kind of spread out?
Yeah. I like to say I came to jazz through the back door. And I was really into, I grew up on classic rock and then heavy metal creeped in the 80s and started getting popular. And when I heard Metallica and I heard Lars Ulrich, that was like game changer for me. Just, how heavy they were. And I was like such a Metallica head. And I started taking lessons from this guy, Sal LaRocca, who's an incredible jazz musician, and he scared the crap out of me. He's like, do your rudiments, read, you got to learn to read, do your homework. And I just wanted to rock out and learn beats, and he wasn't giving me that.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of had this Charles Bronson vibe where he was just
Oh,
very, and he always wore a leather jacket and
so
he was
like a
like,
gangster biker version of Whiplash.
exactly. And he was so cool. I mean, he was a really nice guy, but he was very monotone and he wouldn't get excited for anything.
Wow.
So, I came home and he's sitting on the back of his car, and I was like 2 minutes late for the lesson. He's like, "You're late," and I was like, "No, don't kill me." So anyway, I just I found another teacher, Keith Crane, who kind of realized my situation and spoon fed me rudiments and reading, but it was primarily dieting on groove and learning rock beats. And he got me into the Realistic Rock book by Appice, and that was what I wanted,
Yeah.
And then Joe Franco's double bass book, and so long story short, or short story long, I started playing in this heavy metal band in high school, and we were rehearsing, and it was just high school ruckus with these, there was a lot of beer drinking involved, and just every rehearsal had the amps at 11, and it was just so. And I was still studying with Keith at the time, and we decided to do a demo. So we got a tape machine from the local music store, a reel to reel, and we had a deck, and we were going to record in my garage. And so the lead singer kind of didn't know what was going on. And he said, no, 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 we record drums last. And first we record guitar so I didn't know anything. So I was like, okay, drums last. That sounds good. So these guys were drinking and
I bet the
I was
timing was
always there.
impeccable.
Yeah, the timing was impeccable. So the timing is perfect. It's doing this.
Yeah,
I'm
perfectly
like
roller
trying to
coaster.
play along to this. And I don't know any better. And I'm thinking, wow, my time is horrible and I can't even play along with this guitarist. So Keith comes for a lesson like a couple days later, and I explained the situation to him, and he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! You recorded what first?" He's like, "Let me ask you a question. When you build a house, do you start from the roof and work your way down, or do you start with the foundation?" And I was like, well, everybody knows the foundation, Keith. And he's like, yes, well, the bass and the drums are the foundation. Like, you got to get the drums first, and then you can build from there. So I was like, oh, okay. Like, I didn't know anything. I just wanted
Yeah.
to
If you
find
don't know,
out.
you don't know.
No, you don't know, you don't know. So he's yelling at me one day, and my mother comes out. She's like, what the hell is going on out here? And he's like, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, shut the hell up. And my mom, like, she's a sweetheart and she never raises her voice. All of a sudden, she's screaming at this guy. She's like, shut the hell up. Get out of my house. Nobody talks to my son that way. And so, like, at this point, I wanted out. And
What was he yelling about?
he was yelling about my time or something. Like,
Oh,
I was the one that didn't know anything, so I would get picked on. And it was a hazing, basically. It was like, you want to play music? Well, here you go.
oh, wow.
It was an amazing learning lesson. And this whole thing that transpired inspired me to go to school, because I had been reading Modern Drummer magazines, like religiously. And I'm like, wow, Dennis Chambers can swing. Wow, Steve Smith can swing. Well, all these guys that were amazing funk players, and getting turned on to all these names. I had no idea who these guys were. And it's like, who's Steve Gadd? Then I go to like check Steve Gadd out, and I'm like, whoa, this is like a deep, deep, vein of drumming here. And like, I was just getting turned on left and right. And my teacher was turning me on to things. So in my mind, I was like, you know what? Screw this heavy metal stuff. I'm going to school and I'm going to learn music. So I had gone back to Sal LaRocca at that point, and I said, Sal, I want to go to school. I don't know if you know any schools or whatever, but like, teach me the rudiments, teach me how to read, teach me different styles. Like, I want to get into a school. And he's like, wow. He's like, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear you came back to me. And, of course I'll help you out. And it was a different relationship at that point, and if he said jump, I'd say how high. And like, I had a stack of books and a whole bunch of cassette tapes, dating myself, that he would record and play along to this, play along to Art Blakey, play along to Philly Joe, play along to Tony. And like, so I was getting turned on, and just, all this stuff was spilling into my noggin. And I did my demo I ended up going to William Patterson, which is one of the best jazz programs in the country.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I'd get in there, and never played with any jazz musicians up to that point. My dad is, a pretty decent jazz musician. He plays keys and organ. So we did a duo thing. He played organ, and we did my demo for school. We did like a ballad, a medium, and an upper, or a Latin or something like that, 3 or 4 tunes. And I sent it in, and lo and behold, they said, sure, we accept you. And I was like, oh my God, okay. So I go to William Patterson, and they stick me in with the Lions. They put me in with like one of the top groups.
Oh, wow.
He's counting off the tune. Well, I'm not hearing 2 and 4. I'm hearing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm like, ding, ding, ding. I'm backwards every time. And they're like, whoa, stop. All right, let's count this off again. And he's doing the same thing, counting 2 and 4. And I'm hearing 1, 2, 3, 4. And like, after the second or third time, he's like, where are you hearing the 1? And I was like, 1, 2, 3. And he's like, oh, okay. No. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And I was like, oh, so like, that's how naive I was.
How interesting.
Yeah.
I want to play a clip, and we'll come back to that. I've got so many questions that are in there. I want everyone to get a taste of your playing. This is a solo by Ray. I forgot how long this one is, so we'll see. But folks, turn it up and check this out. And one of the things I'd like you to all watch for and listen for, even if you're not a drummer, because we have a lot of drummers, of course, that follow Drum Talk TV, a lot of other musicians, and then just a lot of weirdos that like watching drummers. So you're all welcome. And here you go. Watch for the smoothness and the fluidity and dexterity in Ray's playing. Check this out. Just absolutely dig that. And by coincidence or not, I'm wearing a Drum Talk TV shirt that says, if a band has groove, you can thank the drummer. So there you go. And you mentioned that when you were exploring and taking a deep dive and getting this big download and marinating and all these drummers like Steve and Carmine, all these drummers, a lot of them, especially the classic rock drummers, Carmine Appice, John Bonham, Mitch Mitchell, Bill Ward, talk about music of Jimi Hendrix, Black Sabbath, so many more, Cream with Ginger Baker. They didn't have rock influences because it hadn't been invented yet. They were all jazz
Yeah.
influenced and jazz drummers. So it's important, right, for people to know where their favorite drummers or musicians backgrounds are from and what they looked to, so you know what they're doing came from, where they developed it from. And it sounds like that was kind of a big revelation through some of that journey with you, right?
The lineage, there's a lineage
Right.
to what came before and what came after. And I think, I was very guilty of not caring about anything that happened back there until I took the deep dive and realized how important that was. And reading Modern Drummer was just a godsend because, it was turning me on to things that I knew nothing about, different styles and genres and players. And who's this guy? And then I go to Tower Records and look for these names. And when you find that name, like I find Steve Gadd on a record and I'm like, I don't know who Steve Kahn is, but if Gadd's on it, it's got to be good. And I go home and get my mind blown,
Right, right. And did you start playing to that stuff as you were listening to it? Did you learn that way at all?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was a big part of my lessons with Sal LaRocca was, playing along. So my practice routine back then was warming up for 30 minutes to an hour, like just really taking my time warming up, getting blood into the extremities. And then from there, I'd go into the rudiments. And then from there, I'd go into my books and I'd work on groove books. I'd work on snare etude books, NERD solos, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then, I'd play along with these tapes and, just sit there and stop, rewind. What was that? And just trying to cop, just stealing little pieces,
Yeah.
trying to cop what I'm hearing, and then at night I would go out and go to jam sessions and listen to what other people doing and then try to go to see as many drummers as I could. And, it's so inspirational when you see a great drummer and you go out on town and then you come back and you want to just get into it that much more. And
Yeah,
so
it's too bad you live where the pool is so shallow for that kind of talent, though.
yeah, New York doesn't have that many musicians, especially in
So
the jazz.
here's a question for you, Ray. As you began to become educated in music, not only through the academia, but discovering jazz and Steve Gadd, Steve Smith, all these other players, did your position change? Yeah, I'm sure your perspective did, but did your position change with the love for heavy metal? Did you look at it differently? Did you say, that's BS? Or like, if you don't mind me asking, where does that sit now and how'd that transformation happen for you?
Yeah, I kind of turned into a jazz snob and I was like, oh, heavy metal is beneath me. And uh, that's just where I was at in my development. And I thought that it was inferior to what I was hearing with jazz. It's just a different genre. And
Yeah.
so when I came back to heavy metal, there was a lot of bands that I never really listened to and a lot of rock that I never really listened to
Oh,
in a deep level. Like I listened, but
you
I
had
never
new
checked.
ears now, right? You had a whole new way of listening to them.
Alex Van Halen was like I grew up on Van Halen and I loved Van Halen, but I was never like, check out that drum part he's playing. It's wicked. There was, of course, some drum parts that were amazing and you're like, wow, that's cool. But that's as far as it went. But when I really came back to check it out, like Hot for Teacher was like trying to wrap my mind around that. And then
Right.
seeing the transcription, I was like, holy crap, it is playable. Because when you hear it like first time, it's like, oh, that's not playable. That's an overdub. That was like the first thing I thought was
Yeah.
I really, came back to things in a fresh way, and it was really good to take a vacation from a certain genre of music and come back to it later in life. Um, and Bonham was another one. Like I grew up on Led Zeppelin, but I never dissected Bonham. And then when I came back and listened to Bonham, I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, like this is deep.
Yeah, that is
All the way,
so cool.
the tunings of the drums and the sizes of the drums and the mic placement and all that stuff that I could care less about,
Yeah,
as a,
the nuances that made the biggest differences. Yeah,
yeah.
cool. Let's see more of Ray. I'm gonna go to this video. Here's another solo because Dan can't help himself and he just loves this stuff. Here we go. Check this out. I just love this groove. It occurred to me, you probably don't know what video I'm playing. I don't know if you can hear it.
No, I can't hear it.
Okay, so that one was the Ray Long solo, the real
Oh,
funky, deeper groove. And the first one was the Ray Solo 2B, is the name of that file. So those are the first two things people saw. Before we go into current projects, the work with Will Lee, and we'll show some couple videos of that. Talk about the book that you got going with Hudson Music and that holistic approach. You mentioned earlier that one of your teachers, I like using the word teacher, one of your teachers, you mentioned, I might be paraphrasing, catered to your situation. I think a lot of people don't know your story. Do you mind talking about that? Because Ray, you are a huge inspiration to me personally. And the interesting thing is that before what happened, I'm going to tell you, happened last week, you and I already planned this interview. And I have not told anybody outside my real tight sphere about this, but last week we live on a highway up in the mountains. And last week, a 15-foot flatbed trailer came unhitched from a truck, crossed the lanes, and flew into the front part of our house, which is my wife's business part of our house. And this trailer landed right where she sits every day. She was not sitting there. She was in the back of the house in our room getting ready for a function we were going to go to. And had we not planned that, she would have been sitting there and she wouldn't be here today. And you've been on my mind. I've been watching your videos. I've been getting ready for the interview, talking to Steve. He's telling me, yeah, I got everything posted. And you're one of the first people that came to my mind because I think that everyone goes through shit, right? And everyone looks at it as the worst thing at that moment that they're going to. And we all deal with it differently. Some people fall down a deep, dark hole. Some people just dust themselves off. How do they do that? Some people, there's always a process, and our processes aren't always the same.
no, no,
You
no.
being an inspiration to me, brother's been part of the process and just putting things in perspective and knowing that there's always more on the other side. Will you please tell everybody your story, brother?
Yeah. So, thank you for those kind words. And, yeah, everybody has a cross they have to bear, in
Yeah.
life. So I was just a happy-go-lucky kid like anybody else, and just doing my thing. And we were bored one summer, and we built this fort out of an old abandoned chicken coop, like this 2-room chicken coop, and it was like our little kid condo, and we like completely maxed it out with like rug on the walls, and we dug a basement in one of the rooms, and like
Oh, wow.
we it was this summer project, and all the kids from the neighborhood helped out, and we just we had fun. That this chicken coop is in the backyard.
And how
We
old were you? About 8?
oh
12. 12. Okay.
We had just gotten back from Long Beach Island down at the Jersey Shore. My brother and I were looking for something to do. So we're like, hey, let's just camp out and see if anybody's around. So there was really nobody around except our friend TR. Everybody else was kind of on vacation, summer vacation. And so TR, my brother, and I decided to camp out in the backyard in this chicken coop. And I think it was September 20 something. And it was a chilly night. And so, I had a sleeping bag that I slept in, and I went to bed first and fell asleep. And then my brother Greg and our friend TR went to bed maybe an hour, 2 hours later. So I was in deep sleep by the time they went to bed, and they had started falling asleep when the candle just we had a makeshift candle on the wall that like burned down, I guess, and then just kind of collapsed into the wall. And the whole place just went up. And so my brother thought he was the only person in there, and he ran out and tripped over TR, who was sleeping on the floor. TR ran out thinking the same thing. And meanwhile, I'm having a dream that I'm back down at LBI and that I'm going to the beach, and the sand started getting really hot and burning my feet. And the fence that, keeps it from going onto the sand dunes came in and surrounded me. And I started jumping on the sand, and that was my brain trying to wake me up, saying, there's heat, you're burning, you're on fire. So I'm having this dream, and next thing I know, I hear my friend TR say, put your hand in your mouth over your eyes. His father was a volunteer fireman, unbeknownst to me. So he got out of the chicken coop and was like, is there anybody in there? So he came back in and saved my life, basically.
Oh gosh.
Brother, felt this terrible guilt that he should have been the one to save me. And my brother was he was more thinking about, we're going to get, mom and dad are going to be very angry that we caused a fire, and he didn't think anybody was in there. So he kind of hid out. He went down the street and was just kind of cooling out for a while to see what happened. He had no idea what happened to me. So I hear this voice that says, put your hand over your eyes and don't breathe. And next thing I know, I'm seeing burning spots on the grass, and he's rolling me around on the grass. And I don't know, I think I'm down at the Long Beach Island, down at the shore, and I think I'm still dreaming. So he's telling me, stay here. And I'm thinking, this is a crazy dream. And I'm in shock, and I think I'm dreaming. And I'm looking at this tree, and I'm like, why is there a tree growing on the sand? That's pretty crazy. Trees don't grow in the sand. And I'm staring at a field of grass with this tree, this apple tree that was there. And so I'm not really there, And then I'm just kind of feeling myself, and I felt my arm, and that's what kind of knocked me out of the dream state. And I was like, whoa, there's pain. This doesn't feel right. There's burn, there's a crispy feeling when I touch, something's burned. Then my heart started pounding, and I was like, whoa, what happened? And next thing I know, my mom's there. TR ran up to the house, and he's banging on the door, and my mom looked out and saw the fire. And her boyfriend at the time, my parents were divorced. And so her boyfriend, Eric, was like, call the police and the fire department immediately. So my mom's there. And when I started panicking, all I could think is I want my mom. I was 12 years old, and I'm like, where's my mommy? And next thing I know, my mom's there, and I'm like, Mom, am I okay? Am I okay? What's going on? And it was very dark, and I had a deep, dark tan, and she couldn't see any burns. And so she was like, yeah, you're fine. They were worried about my brother, that he had died in the fire.
Oh, because he was missing, basically, right?
And they thought he burned to death in the fire. So my mom got this on the back of her head. She's now in an ambulance going to a burn unit in Westchester. And she's just I don't know how she didn't just completely lose it. I mean, I guess everybody was in shock. And it was, the doctor took a look at me, and he was like, your son was burned very bad, 60% from the navel up, and we're going to try to save his life. And so it was 24 hours at a time of just trying to get me stabilized, and then it was, fast forwarding ahead, it was a lot of grafting from my legs that weren't burned. They would take grafts from down here, put them up here, and they had to recover my whole upper body, everything.
Yeah.
So it was get me strong enough and then operation, and then I'm like knocked down, and then it's like, therapy to get me strong enough, and like they got to make sure I can walk, and like, because if you don't use your muscles, it doesn't matter what age you are. Like I started atrophying, and my everything wants to just kind of you know
Yeah, shrink in and tighten up.
yeah. So
Yeah.
the nurses were like, you got to walk, dude, you got to come on, you got to walk. And like walking became very difficult at 12 years old, and very hunched over like an old man. And so they let me go home after 6 or 7 months, and I had a couple open wounds, grafts that they had to do on the head. But so my mom was basically my nurse through the whole thing, and she's like the most amazing, selfless, giving, just she was my rock of Gibraltar.
Wow.
My dad as well, but my dad is very old school and very just kind of tough-lipped, and like it's the first time I ever saw my dad, cry was in an interview, and like it was very obvious that he had a hard time like taking this stuff in,
Yeah.
and just very old school and very, you know, just hard worker, and just like so. But he was very supportive in his way, and he was the guy that got me my first drum set, and
Mm.
so I have to tell the story because it really says a lot. I'm in the hospital, I'm having a hard time, and it's a birthday, and I got depressed. I'm like, it's my birthday, and I'm in the hospital. And my dad's like, we'll get you a drum set, we'll get you a drum set. What do you want? And all I kept thinking was this Slingerland made this chrome covering.
Yep.
And I had just gone to see my dad play at this county fair. He was in a country western band. And so I'm walking around, and I see this rock band. There's a double bass chrome kit with all these toms and with the lights hitting it. And my mom was like, think of Healing Thoughts. What makes you feel good? And I kept thinking of that
That
kit.
kit. Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the lights, and like, I just kept thinking of that. And so, I got out of the hospital, and my dad, came through, and it wasn't the chrome kit, and I didn't care what I got. I was just wanted drums. And
Yeah.
so this kit, I think it was Maxwin by Pearl.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Remember that?
And Avanti cymbals, or like these kind of cheap plate things.
What
But
year was this for context, Ray?
this was like 84.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember the symbols too. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was this, we went to a music store where my dad was living, and we got this kit, brand new kind of entry level kit. And so yeah, we came home, and like my right hand, they didn't take that many digits off. You could see like these
Yeah.
fingers kind of stuck curled, and they did that for a reason, so I can hold things.
Uh-huh. Little did
Like,
they know, right?
so I can pick, well, he did it, knowing that like these two fingers are frozen. So let's bend them so he can actually pick things up.
But I mean, they probably didn't suspect a stick, a drumstick.
They weren't thinking sticks, but I'm
Right.
glad they did what they did, because
Yeah.
I have a not perfect grip, but I have a very firm grip on the right hand, that you know um, was there.
Yeah.
I have limited mobility on my wrist, but I have mobility, and like
Yeah.
I worked my ass off with rudiments, and I still do today to like, I wanted to get to a certain level, but at first I just wanted to be able to hold the sticks, and there was no doubt in my mind, no doubt at all that I was going to do this, and so what I wanted to say about that was my dad says, yeah, we'll get you a drum set when you get out of the hospital. The nurse is changing the whatever in the room. And my dad's like, all right, I'll see you when I see you next. And he's leaving the hospital. And the nurse says, Mr. LeVier, can I speak with you? And he says, yeah, sure. What's up? And she says, your son's having a really hard time. And I don't think it's a good idea to get his expectations up about, telling him he's going to play the drums and like he can't hold sticks, and like that's not going to be good for him mentally, whatever she said to him. And my dad was just like, you don't know my son. And he walked away. And
Love it.
so I didn't know about this till years later, but it just goes to show you, as a 12-year-old kid, I realized how everybody is very limited in their thinking. And they're like, well, don't let him do this because he can't do that. And like, how's he going to feed himself? And like, these were things that like I never thought about, they
Yeah.
were just, I'm going to figure it out, and that's all there is to it. And
Hmm.
nobody can get me out of it. So at a very young age, I realized that no one can tell you how things are going to go except you. And, so that was a very valuable learning lesson. And there's many gifts that I got out of this accident that, you know,
Yeah.
uh, and one of them was drumming. And would I have been a drummer if I weren't burned, and would I had to drive? And like, I don't know, maybe not.
Right.
Maybe it would have just been a hobby and I would have gone on to other pastures. Who knows?
Yeah.
But after the accident, drumming became like, I latched onto drumming like, I'm going to do this. And it became this like
All
magical
consuming kind of
all
feeling.
that, I was going to do it. And
Yeah.
this was going to like give me purpose again. And like, so I found a lot of purpose in drumming, and it got my physicality back, and just so many great things that go along with drumming, and just learning that deep road of learning. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been something that I really latched onto. So, that's where I am today. And it just, I was like, all right, let me see if I can hold the drumsticks first. If I can hold the drumsticks, like I can do anything,
Yeah. Yeah.
like they were my wings. Like if I can get a pair of wings on me, like I'll learn to fly, just
Yeah.
get out of the way, just give me some time and some space and I'll figure it out. Cause I was, a pretty clever kid, pretty bright, and sometimes too clever for my own good. Like I'd want to go home and do my kid stuff. So I would like do my homework in the back room, or, I would act, like I didn't know what was going on with the teacher. And I'm going to close this door real quick because dogs are,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No problem. I can't hear them, but yeah, whatever you need to do, no worries.
so, so yeah, that it was, something that really like completely, gave me purpose and meaning, and off I went, and
That's awesome.
it was really to show myself that A, I could do something of value, and B, like I noticed, people at school were like, "Oh, you're a drummer," and all of a sudden it was like, this popularity because I played an instrument and because I could play the drums, and so I liked that, of course, and
Sure. Yeah.
so it had a lot of perks that you know,
That's awesome. And just I know you know this, but I can't not say again just what an inspiration you are, and the dedication, the perseverance, the believing, you know, and everything that you can do it. This is something everyone should adopt no matter where they are in life with anything, and I for one totally can appreciate that.
that's the takeaway. And I don't care if you're a drummer or a doctor or anything, like no one can tell you how it's going to turn out except for you.
Yeah.
And um, this book that I'm working on is a holistic approach to drumming, which we'll get into later. But it, one of the things about talent is it's a myth, and basically um, there's this great thing. There's a book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind by Shunryu Suzuki. And if there's any musicians that are listening, please get that book, because if you swap the word for zazen or zen with drumming or guitar, whatever you want,
It's the same thing. Yeah. Apply
same.
it.
It's about how to deal with life on that terms, with all these amazing Zen stories and koans and all this cool stuff. And like, I'm not a Zen Buddhist or anything, but there's such a wealth of information in there. Um, it's just an incredible book. The
That's
audiobook is
awesome.
out there too, if you're a driving and listening type of guy. But
Yeah.
there's a thing about talent. Well, it's not really meant for talent. It's called the four horses. And the first horse will turn at the when it sees the shadow of the whip. The second horse will turn when it hears the crack of the whip above it. The third horse will turn when it feels the whip gently on its skin. And the fourth horse will turn when the crack of the whip penetrates the marrow of its bone, till it's like this guy's whacking the shit out of the horse to get it to move.
Yeah.
So we all want to be the best horse, right? So it's like same thing with drumming. We all want to be the best, but that's wrong thinking. It's like
Yeah.
no better or worse or anything. It's just who you are as an individual. And I kind of, I'm the worst horse. Like that's how I felt with drumming. Like nothing came easy to me. Nothing. I worked really hard, blood, sweat, and tears, literally, and just, perseverance and white knuckling a lot of stuff, and just like sheer, just stubborn determination of like, I'm going to get this. And like a lot of type of energy of,
Yeah.
you're stupid, sit there and don't get up. And like a lot of like wrong way of teaching myself, but like I was going to do it. I was going to get this done no matter what happened, and that was my
Yeah.
mentality. And it was painful a lot of times. Like to learn things was very painful for me. It didn't come easy, like I had this, vision of drumming, and it was like I'm not worthy. I'm just not worthy of all this stuff. Like you're worthy of it. And like this guy started playing drums when he was 3 years old, but so like I'm coming in at 16, like and I'm still not practicing really. I'm just playing my few beats and stuff and taking lessons, but not really practicing. And then there came a point where I was like 18 or 19, and I was like, this thing happened with this heavy metal band, and I was like, oh, like I'm gonna go to school, and like I'm really behind the eight ball here. Like
You're not though. And that's another myth.
that was the mentality. That was what I put on
In your
me.
head. Yeah. Yeah. Because it is your reality, and that's what we all, have to deal with. I think I told Ray before we went on. Yeah, it was before we went live that, and I'll say it because I'm comfortable with myself. So I'm 60, and I'm embarrassed sometimes to say I've been playing 54 years. Having said that, I'm really good at certain things, yet there is so much that is so out of my range because I never worked on it. I didn't learn it. I didn't practice it. I have a narrow lane, but it's extremely deep. And one of the things, and I'm going to play it now, that I love watching you do and many other drummers is I never learned Latin drumming properly. And to me, on a drum set, it's the most intriguing thing to learn, whether it's Mozambique, whether it's just a classic Latin beat, whether it's Brazilian, anything in that sphere to me is like just I and at my age, and that's not an excuse, but it's a reason that at my age and with two really busy businesses, Drum Talk TV, my marketing, all this, it's like I don't have the bandwidth to sit and learn a new genre.
Yeah.
However, in a few years, when I don't have to do as much, I want to go on a 3 month, 4 month, 6 month sabbatical and travel the world and stay a month in each culture and learn West African beats, learn Brazilian drumming, learn Mozambique. Because to me, I'm behind that eight ball, and that'll be the only way to get up to speed is to completely immerse myself in it. But one more thing before I share that video, Ray, is you mentioned, we talked about the perseverance, but what came with that for you was the discipline, self discipline. And that's a huge, huge, huge takeaway for people because it's up to us. We could find the best teacher, have the best gear, whatever the fuck that means, right? But it's all what we do with it. People aren't what they read, what they preach, what they believe, or any of that. It's all behavior, and the behavior starts inside, and that's really who we are. And that discipline had everything to do with where you are and where you're playing is now.
Yeah, discipline is everything. It's showing up for yourself even when you're like, screw this, I don't want to do this today. And no matter what you love doing, like I'm very grateful that I'm a musician and I get to sit here and like, record music and practice and but I forgot my train of thought.
It was that thing about the stuff that had to do with the deal.
The discipline,
Yeah.
it's really like there's some days, most days I don't feel like coming in here. It's like going to the gym, but discipline is everything. It's
Yeah.
doing it despite how you feel. It's like, no, we're not getting off the hook. We're
Right.
gonna practice, or we're going to the gym, and like, getting like I make sure no matter what time I go to bed at night, I get up at the same time every morning because that's what keeps the body,
Yeah.
on time. So it's like there's certain things like it's just you can't bend. You have to do it.
Yeah, I love it. Let's watch Island Magic.
Oh
Then we're
man,
going to talk about your project. You're playing with Will Lee. Then we're going to talk about your fantastic book that's going to be out hopefully very soon. Check out
right on.
Island Magic. And folks, let us know if you have questions,
Please.
comments. I've got another computer over here. I keep checking. I'm not watching the Flintstones like when I interviewed Steve Gadd. Just kidding. Check this out, folks. Such a great break. Such a great piece. Who did the music for that, Ray?
I don't know who did the music, but that's from Dave Weckel's contemporary drummer minus one. He came out, with that
Yeah.
back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Gosh, I love the stay power that has. It still works.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's dated sounding, but it's so hip.
Yeah, totally. And you look so relaxed. Are you as relaxed when you play as you look?
Sometimes.
It depends on what you're playing or who you're playing with.
Yeah, that particular tune it's tricky. So I was took a few takes to, because I wanted to do it from beginning to end, and I didn't want to do any edits, so
Yeah.
took a few takes, and it's a weird tune. It's
Yeah.
in seven, and it's Latin, and it's got a lot of breaks and hits, and then the solo section in the middle, and there's a lot of time to ruminate as you're playing, and
Yeah.
get ahead of yourself.
Exactly. Very cool. Talk about who you're playing with. I want to show a bit of a clip of you playing with Will Lee. This is video number 4. And then we'll talk about that and then play another video of you with Will. Then we'll talk about the book. Sound good?
Yeah, man.
All right. Dig this, folks. As soon as I get to the right button, there it is. Check it out. So good. How did the connection between you and Will come about, and talk about playing with him?
I kept bumping into Will in town and kept seeing him at the bitter end. And he's like, "Hey, man, how you doing? We should play sometime." And I was like, "Sure, yeah, you're Will Lee." And I just thought he was a nice guy, just saying, and he kept saying it every time I saw him, "Hey, we should play, man." And I kept bumping into him. And then one day, like, I think we started texting or something, and I said something, along the lines of, "I'd love to play with you sometime," or whatever. And he said, "Anytime, anywhere, let me know." And so I was like, "Wow, okay, I guess he's serious." And then I had a record that came out, and it's called Lost and Found. It was like a kind of a rock singer-songwriter record. I wrote all the tunes, played all the instruments, and
Oh, wow.
so Will, like, I mentioned it to Will. He's like, "Oh yeah, I have it. It's in my podcast. I mean, in my iPod." And I was like, "Oh, you have it?" I was like, "Okay." Like, so then I realized, like, this cat is just really down to earth and really sweet, and just like, the more I got to know Will, it's just like he's just a salt of the earth, amazing guy who just happens to be an iconic world class bassist that
Yeah.
played with everybody, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So
I think
what'd you play first? You guys sit down for the very first time. Was it Smoke on the Water? Was it Birdland? What?
no, it was
Where did
actually
you start?
it's a recording session. My friend Todd Urban recorded us. He's got a studio, and he's a rep for Soft Tube, which is like they have um, plugins, reverbs, and all this amp modeling and stuff like that
Yeah.
company. And so Todd works for Soft Tube, and he mentioned something came up where they wanted to do something for a piece of modeling gear. So he's like, "It'd be great if you can get a band together, and you can come here and record it. We'll do a couple songs, and you'll have the recording, and I can get my Soft Tube footage." So I called. I had Mike Stern played on my record, so I've been friends with Mike for a long time.
Oh, wow, that's great. Yeah.
But Mike said yes, and then I'm like, "This is a great opportunity to see if Will would do it." So Will said absolutely. And another keyboard player, a good friend of mine, Etienne Stabwick, a phenomenal keyboard player, played in Richard Bona's band for many years.
Yeah.
So we did these two songs, and one of them was a song I wrote for Mike called Wig Glue, which is a single that I just put out.
Yeah.
And the other one was That's All It is the name of the tune that Mike wrote. So we did those two tunes, and so that was the first time I played with Will, was like in the studio. And then I'm trying to develop my YouTube page, and doing interviews is something I'm trying to get out there more. And I don't have a page for doing interviews and podcasts and all that, but I just basically wanted to do this interview with Will because we just had a great rapport, and he's just an amazing guy and just very transparent and open. So he did this video, and that's the playing of me and Will that you see there. It's just we would talk and do the interview, and then we break it up with some playing.
Some clips. Yeah, cool. That's
So-
great. Let's see more of that. This is Will and Ray playing 5 is the name of the file. Check it out, folks.
Not in 5.
Right, exactly. Yeah, or at 5. So cool. You guys play so well together. This is a perfect time to ask a question that was put in the comments by Joshua VP all the way from Belgium. Hey, Joshua, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
Um, you had the first video we showed that's basically a classic bass walking jazz. Then we had this, which is more funk oriented, talked about heavy metal, some of the other things you've done. What does your practice sessions look like, Ray? You mentioned, warming up, rudiments, get blood to the extremities, and then do you focus on one thing at a time, or do you divide your practice time between different genres, or just let it rip and see what empties out of your body?
Yes to all of that. Some days you just got to go in and just let it rip and see what flows out of your body. But I try to stay disciplined and, stay on a course of warm up, and just kind of do some type of rudiments. Usually the ones you don't feel like doing, like maybe a flam paradiddle or something, that's a little more difficult. So yeah, I warm up with some rudiments and then, I always try to play some swing. And it's based around the kind of gigs that I get. There's gigs that I'm required to play some swing. There's some jazz fusion stuff that I do with another band. There's some real kind of simple groove stuff that I do with other bands. And, there's a singer-songwriter band, this girl, KJ Dennert. I've been in her band for 25 years. And
Wow.
she's this eclectic singer-songwriter, fabulous artist. Should definitely check her out. That's worth a mention. So I've been in her band a long time, and there's a lot of simple stuff, and then there's a lot of shuffles and kind of Steely Danish type of grooves that are just,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really based upon what I'm having to get asked for in real life on the bandstand.
Cool.
But then there's stuff like the Latin stuff we're talking about where, I don't do many Latin gigs at all. And here's my kitty cat.
Hey, kitty.
So, that's something I got to keep working on all the time. So
My cat does the same thing.
stealing my
Remember, we are fellow furry lovers with 3 dogs and 2 cats, and you got 2 dogs and a cat.
I do. They're my bud.
That's cool. Thanks for
So,
answering
yeah.
that. Yeah, that's cool. And thank you, Joshua, for the question. Now you know. Now everybody knows. And before we go on to talk about your book, a couple other quick questions. One is, who are some, knowing what kind of music you're doing now, are there any influences that might surprise people that aren't exactly what fall into some of the things we've been talking about? Like I heard Geddy Lee say once how much he loves the B-52s. I think the average Rush fan probably would have a much closed purview of what they think someone like Geddy likes, for example,
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I'm a product of the 80s, and so there's like a lot of 80s bands that I really love, the Tears for Fears and, just pop stuff that came out of the 80s that just when you hear it, it takes you back, and it's just,
Yeah.
you can't ever not listen to it. It's just part of your tapestry,
Yeah, exactly. Great way to put that. Let's talk about your book, A Holistic Approach to Drumming. It's going to be out through Hudson Music, Rob Wallace and them.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Well, it's there's a lot of books out there, and I wanted to write a book based upon basically what I came through with just by practicing, and all the stuff that my teachers have taught me through going through syncopation books and tools and methods of going through syncopation, and doing the somber pattern with and then reading with your left hand, and or doing the jazz pattern and reading with your left hand and then switching it up with your foot and whatever. And so I came up with some things just by default. By you go down the deep hole, you're like, oh, that's a cool idea. So there's some of those things that I came up with that are kind of definitely inspired by the teachers that I studied with. John Riley really and took me down the path of showing me like how powerful this syncopation tool is. And so it works with pretty much every genre of music that you can find something, from syncopation, whether you're a metal drummer or a Brazilian drummer or a jazz drummer or a funk drummer. So it's showing how to get the most mileage out of syncopation and coming up with some tools to lead you down some creative paths. And then I talk about permutating and the power of permutations when I went through Future Sounds, Garibaldi's iconic book.
Yeah.
That was when I was first turned on to permutating an idea, where you flop it over one note and keep flopping it over one note till you have, you go through the whole gamut of the variations.
Right.
So that's kind of what's in the book as well, and it's really about not spoon feeding you ideas, but more inspiring you to come up with your own ideas through thinking about this permutation idea and getting the most mileage out of syncopation. And the whole book is, the holistic side of it is that the whole book is meant to go through it with these breathing modalities. And breathing is really the key to flow. Like, we all want flow in our playing. And flow is something that happens, and it kind of comes in through the back door when you're not looking. You can't make flow happen. Like, come on, flow, get in here. It just doesn't work that way.
Or move this way.
Flow, from what I understand from a neuroscientist, Dr. Andrew Huberman, I love his podcasts, and I've gotten a lot of research from him. And flow is something that happens when you're good at something and you get out of the way enough to let it flow. And
right.
So there's a lot of, I wanted to write a book about how to get out of the way, because as a drummer, I've always had trouble just focusing. And
wait a minute, you mean there's drummers who have gotten in their own way?
Believe it or not.
This is a great topic, actually. Yeah.
And so by default, it was really something that I wanted to, ever since I started drumming, like I was trying to find, because I knew when I sat down and nobody was listening, I would get into a flow state, and I would think, like, wow, I can play, and then, but once you get on stage, you get around somebody, where did it go?
Yeah.
I was always like, just befuddled my mind it was so frustrating of like, how come I can't, like, why do I put all this anxiety on my playing? And like,
how do we not capture that flow like lightning in a jar and just open it when we need it?
Yeah. And that's not just for musicians, athletes, and, anybody that's, talking to a group of people. It's just like,
yeah,
you're your best, and when you're not, and when you're stuck behind this thing that's preventing you from breaking through to the other side. So I just started thinking of like, I need to get into things like meditation and affirmations and breathing modalities to get, because your egoic mind is like basically not your friend most of the time. We all need ego to do things in life, right? But
right.
After, once you're doing it, like, you don't need this ego going, well, that's not good enough, and
right.
Like, all these things come in, and that
self-doubt and listening what other people say. There's so many. It comes from you at all directions.
Yeah. So it's like, how do you quiet that down? So a lot of the book is based on quieting your mind. And it's the science behind meditation. And it's not that you should have to, get cross-legged and put the incense and the candles on, which is cool. And I do that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I try to meditate every morning and night before I go to bed, at least 10 or 30 minutes, because it does miraculous things to my mind.
Yeah, we are on the same page with that for sure.
And the science of meditation is coming out. I love that science is coming out in a big way about all these modalities that were like, oh, breathing and meditation and, this nutrition and all these things that, we growing up, like, I didn't hear a lick about, it's now very prevalent. And so it's a good thing. And breathing is a great way to trap your mind into a modality. So as you're doing an exercise, let's say a single stroke roll, the main breathing modality in the book is called box breathing. And that's like, let's say 4 beats in, you hold your in breath for 4 beats, then you breathe out for 4 beats, and you hold the out breath for 4 beats. So that's one cycle, and it's a box, right? So as you're doing that, like you got to focus on, staying in your place. And that's why counting is so important, because, we, as drummers, we need to analyze information in chunks, and they have to be these Lego block chunks that are either 4 bars or 8 bars or 16 bars or 32 bars, and then it goes off in, some other wackier places, 7 bars.
Right.
That's how we think as drummers. And so this breathing modality is a tool and an anchor that keeps you in what you're doing, instead of having a conversation with yourself. It's like a lot of practice time is wasted because we're having a conversation and we're not there. We're down the street or the club that we played last night, wondering why, the bass player rushed or dragged, and we're just gone. We're out to lunch.
Yeah. What's up with this girlfriend drama, or it goes on and on.
It's being mindful, and meditation for me has always been about, like, if I sit down and say, don't look at the elephant in the room, of course you're going to.
That's all you see.
Yeah. So this Shunryu Suzuki Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind says, if you want to get someone to focus, you have to give them a huge pasture. Like you can't confine them in a little box, because they'll be like, And, if you give them all the space they need, like the clouds in the sky have all the space they need, like they're okay with that. And it's a big area to relax into. So it's like being mindful is kind of the same thing. Like, just, you don't get caught up in like, oh, I lost my meditation focus. And then now you're down that road of whatever. So that's going to happen, right? Nothing is perfect. Like when you practice, like you're looking for mistakes, and mistakes are key. And that's one of the things I talk about in the book of neuroscience is mistakes are so, so important, because that's what fires neuroplasticity in the brain. And the brain goes, we need to fix that, make an adjustment. And then next time you make a mistake, well, okay, something's not right, let's adjust again. And that's how neuroplasticity kicks in. So meditation is coming back. And I've heard that from somebody, and I was like, that's it for me. It's really, you're training your mind to come back to being in the moment.
Yeah.
Not down, and it's going to happen. And it's not getting angry at yourself because you lost your focus. It's, there goes Ray again. He's gone. Let's bring him back.
Yeah.
So you start focusing on the coming back, and next thing you know, you're actually focusing, and focus is, as we know as drummers and life, like everything is all about focus, right? When you you're driving your car, you got to focus.
Yeah.
You got to stay in your lane,
You're right. Performing at your height, no matter what you do, like you said earlier, music, athlete, sales, speaker, whatever, it requires focus and preparation, and the best preparation happens with focus. I love all of this, but the thing about breathing personally resonates with me greatly, because still 54 years in of playing drums, I play basically the music I was playing 30, 40, 50 years ago. When I played long, complicated pieces with a lot of weird time signature changes, Carnival 9 by Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Close to the Edge by Cinema Show by Genesis, all these things. And I would play for 3-4 hours at a time. Shows were 2 to 3.5 hours. And I would get into yogic breathing, where it was like my body's doing one thing, playing with my limbs, but my diaphragm, my lungs, my breathing, I'm taking long, slow breaths through the mouth, through the nose, breathing out slowly. It was like a whole different pattern going on. And what that did for me, it helped me focus. It helped me feel more relaxed and like I was using less energy, rather than just doing everything 100% of all my energy. It's like it conserved and gave me better gas mileage, if you will.
Absolutely. Yeah, because you can burn yourself out real quick. You can burn yourself out on one tune by just muscling it. high energy and over breathing.
Right.
And when you're doing that, you're leaking energy out of your body that, and that's what these martial artist people really understand is like force and all that stuff doesn't happen by pushing harder with your muscles. It's energy.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I'm trying to tap into with drummers with this book is that, like, yes, it's a book on, how to do this and how to do that. But instead of spoon feeding them and giving you ideas to get creative and be like, oh, what if I did this? What if I did that? What if I painted with this color? So, and it's all based on what we're talking about with these breathing modalities and, training yourself just like a dog. Like where you tell your dog to stay, there's a puppy that's got all this energy.
Yeah.
What the Zen Buddhists call it. It's like what do they say? A monkey drunk and stung by a scorpion and swinging from vine to vine. That's your mind just going crazy. And it's like a puppy in the room with this, he's going nuts. It's going 90 miles an hour. And you tell it to sit, and it only has the capacity to sit for maybe 10 seconds, and then and it goes crazy.
Exactly.
That's your mind, and you have to train this animal, and you have to be patient with it. And you can't yell at the dog, like it doesn't know any better. And it's like, it's the same thing with us. We have to be kind to ourselves and be like, you know what, you don't get it yet because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
We're all learning. And so once you get, that's what meditation does for me. It gave me that 5 seconds of not freaking out. And then the 5 seconds turned into 20 seconds. And then next thing I know, a minute went by, and then, and that's all relatable to music. You got to get from the beginning to the end of the song and stay in your lane and stay focused and not think about whatever's happening in your life or whatever. And it really is a Zen moment of meditation. So for anybody that's hung up on the word meditation, everything you do in life is meditation, from driving a car to, studying to playing. It's all focused. So,
absolutely. When is the book expected to come out, Ray?
We were talking to Joe and Rob about giving them the manuscript, like early fall, late fall, somewhere around.
Possibly by the holidays?
I'm hoping, yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'll have the manuscript done by then, but, they're pretty swamped over at Hudson Music all the way up till November, according to Rob. So we'll see, but either late this year or next year.
Cool. Keep us posted. You'll come back on when it's out so that we can talk about it, show it off and everything.
Love to. Yes.
Awesome. Totally. We'll close with this. This is what I refer to as the Ray LeVier Fun Fact segment. So, Ray, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. Give me the answer as quick as you can in as few words as possible. We'll just blow through a few of these so people can get to know even more about you. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Favorite TV show?
Growing up, it was Three's Company. I have a thing for that show.
Cool. Favorite movie?
The Matrix.
Favorite guitar player?
Holdsworth.
Ooh. Favorite destination, no work involved, somewhere where you haven't been before? Other than my house. We'll work that in too.
Wow, that's hard. I probably the Redwood Forest.
Ooh, nice. Is there a skill or hobby you aspire to acquire that you haven't picked up yet?
I mean, I kind of dabble in a lot of things. Like I skateboard, but I'm not that great. I like to cook, but I'm not that great. These things, like, I wish I was better at. I think knitting, funny enough.
Oh, nice. So you have something to do while the guitar players are tuning.
Exactly. Nice to make my own hats and, whatever.
That's cool.
I was always fascinated with how you can, like, just knit something and, like, next thing you know, you're wearing a hat or some gloves or something.
Yeah. That's neat. What is your favorite thing to cook?
I'm full on vegan, so like I just eat a lot of raw foods, and it's probably boring to most people, but a lot of veggies and
Aw.
um, yeah, so a lot of beans, legumes, grains, that type of stuff.
Mhm.
I eat, pretty much the same thing almost every night. I just stick to what's healthy because I went vegan just because I was dating a girl and I was like, full meat eater and everything. And she was a vegetarian. We kept going home with like too much food because I'd get one meal and she'd get another. So we started sharing and I'm like, well, let me try this vegan thing. And I went on YouTube and I'm like, wow, people are saying they get more energy and I'm going to try it. Just going to try this.
How long ago
So I
was
tried
this?
it. What's that?
I'm sorry. How long ago was this? When did you?
I went vegetarian about 8 years ago,
Oh,
and I went
wow.
full 3 years ago after the pandemic. And so I tried it, and I was like, I'm just going to try this. And I didn't do it for the animals or for anything, although I have to say, it felt amazing. Like I felt lighter, and I felt better about myself that I wasn't killing sentient beings for
Yeah.
food. And like, there's something about it that just makes you feel lighter inside and but my energy went through the roof and like I've always been like a mad coffee drinker and like I would drink too
Oh,
much
really?
coffee, the energy going all day because I didn't want to get up. I wanted to keep practicing. So that's one of the key benefits was like my energy went through the roof and I didn't feel bogged down after I ate a meal. And so yeah, anyway,
That's great. I was going to ask your favorite beverage. Is it coffee?
I would have to say it's coffee. Yeah.
Cool. Last question. What is your dream venue on your bucket list you have not played at that you would love to perform at?
Probably like Wembley Stadium,
Nice. It's a nice,
with a
intimate
back
place.
place people.
Awesome. Ray, thanks so much for taking time on a Sunday to join me on Drum Talk TV for your first interview. We'll do it again. And thank you, folks, for following what we do. Huge things about to be unleashed, new things on Drum Talk TV. So sign up for our newsletter. There's a button on our Facebook page. Stephen will pop it into the comments as well. Doesn't cost anything, maybe a little bit of patience, but you also find out about interviews you missed and upcoming events and things like that. We have a Drum Talk TV documentary coming out that's built from our 10-year anniversary show back in May. And again, Ray, thanks so much for taking time. Hang on the line after we sign off. And folks, stay nice, stay happy, play music or listen to music, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Everybody who's out there, thank you so much for tuning in.